Serious drug dealers of Reddit, have you ever called CPS on a client? If so, what's the story? Report comments that violate these rules. Attention. Serious tag notice, jokes, puns, and off-topic comments are not permitted in any comment, parent, or child. Parent comments that aren't from the target group will be removed, along with their child replies. Yes, back when I was younger, maybe 17, I got my first job at Domino's Pizza. One of my managers was a really scummy 24-year-old guy that looked like a troll, had astoundingly bad hygiene, and also a shitty attitude, but sold good weed and bought me cigarettes. This was my first experience having older friends able to get me good stuff on demand like that. One day he hooked me up with a friend of his that was selling mushrooms, so I met with that guy and bought an ounce, and then walked to my manager's house to sell him some, and also get some weed. So turns out him and his similarly aged sister, who has a 1-year-old baby, both live in makeshift bedsheet bedrooms in the basement of the tiny house. They smoked inside, windows closed, cats everywhere, bugs everywhere, weird gross sour smells coming from all areas. Everything gross. Their mom was home, but she was senile and addicted to painkillers, as well as the sister. So we did the trade downstairs, and when I go back upstairs I go to the kitchen to throw some stuff away, and I see the baby in a high chair, eating a pack of cigarettes. He's just sitting there tearing them open, and putting in his mouth, and spitting it out. I ran downstairs, and told the sister, and she just started yelling, Mom, get the baby, a couple times lazily, then gives up, and goes back to just sitting there. It was surreal. I hadn't ever experienced such neglect and disgust from people. I left and waited 2 days to call CPS, because I didn't want my manager to know it was me who called. I know the kids got taken away, and she went to live with a different family member, or at least that's what I was told. How anyone could have a child to just neglect them like that, it really makes my heart ache. When I was selling to her, a lady shook her crying baby in front of me. I wigged out, took the baby, dumped $500 worth of cocaine and heroin, and called 911 from my car. She didn't put up a fight until the cops came to arrest her. She tried to sue me for kidnapping. Definitely not the best strategy for me. I was 18 and addicted pretty bad. But when the baby saw a doctor under state care, he was covered in bruises, a couple of burns, and had 2 broken ribs already. I'm convinced she would have killed him. He's 10 now and happy and thriving. The whole experience and legal battle when she tried to have me charged with kidnapping is how I got sober. I think you and that baby both saved each other. I used to deal way back when I was a hot mess in an extremely abusive relationship. I called CPS on not only one person, but 6. The one that sticks with me most though, not only because of the severity, but because I called twice, was this couple who used to pick up from me at a laundromat, and we ended up seeing each other often enough I felt okay to go to their place. I was so fucking floored when I stepped through that door. I kid you not. They had taken up all the carpeting in the house and had torn down the walls to get at the copper wiring and pipes. They had no electricity or running water. There was nothing in that house except for some sleeping bags in what used to be the living room. And then I noticed a nest of blankets with bright blue eyes peering at me over the pile, and realized that there was a toddler and a small child no more than 5. Until this point, I had never seen nor heard them talk about having kids. The poor kids were filthy and obviously malnourished. The house stunk of meth so badly I gagged. I couldn't believe it. I guess the look of shock was super apparent on my face, because the dad said they were squatting, and introduced me to their kids. I made some small talk and then left. The phone was ringing for CPS. Before I closed my car door, I gave them the address and let them know the conditions of the home, and they were squatting with 2 small children. Gave the names of the parents as I knew them, and the names of the kids. They ended up going to jail for the squatting, and the kids went to live with a relative. They ended up contacting me back to sell to them after they were bailed out of jail, and I never responded. However, the guy I was with at the time ended up selling to them, and they were living in a field in a tent with the kids. I got into a huge fight with my boyfriend over it, and was so disgusted he still sold to them. I ended up calling CPS on them again. From what I heard from other people that knew them, The kids were taken permanently after that, and about a year later the mom ended up going to prison for attempted murder and the dad went to prison for check fraud some weeks after that. Edit. I should have mentioned that I sold weed, shrooms, X, and acid. I'd say you did the right thing for turning them in, but it's a shame the state doesn't help them for their addiction, but rather jails them for their crimes. Throwing them in jail might get them sober for a while, but it won't cure the addiction, which is the root problem. This was a long time ago, and I've since gotten clean and started my own family, but there was a girl I knew who was homeless with her newborn son. On Easter weekend, I was walking on this trail to go meet with some people to sell them a sack. It started raining and that, of course, made me mad. There's these bridges that cross over the top of the trail and lots of kids gather and smoke or get spun under the bridges, and that's where I found her. She was passed out drunk with some random guy under the bridge, while her newborn baby sat strapped in his car seat in the rain. He wasn't under the bridge. He was crying, and he looked dirty. I didn't have any children at this point, but I panicked seeing the little guy. I grabbed him, dropped all the shit I was supposed to be selling, and walked off the trail and up the couple blocks to the police station. I told them what happened and where I'd found him. CPS took him, and he ended up getting adopted. This is a sad story, but I'll tell it anyways, because it was the past. There have been so many stories, but this one takes the cake. It's the reason I stopped selling and turned my life around. I must have been 16 or 17 at the time. I was in high school, also had a part-time job at Dairy Queen, and on top school and regular job, I was selling crack and heroin. I was also selling weed and cigarettes at school. This story involves a heroin and crack user. At the time of this incident, I've already been selling hard for about 1 or 2 years. Profit was pretty good. I'd say around $300 per day on average, which was great for my age. But I spent money as fast as it came. I was young, and I was dumb. So as a DD selling rock, crack, and pants, heroin, I would use some addict's house to sell out of. I guess the cops would call these things crack shacks or projects. I'd be supplying the addict a cheaper price for product so that I could use their house to sell out of. They would also refer a lot of other people to buy from me, and or they would help sell for me in return for product. So the incident is in this addict's house. D. About 50-year-old man has a girlfriend slash partner or something like that. The girlfriend had a little boy, maybe the age of 3/4/5. At the time I didn't know how to tell how old a kid was. I didn't ask either, because I was ashamed of myself for not preventing his mother from using. This kid though, I felt like he was my little brother in some way. I would cook for him when he was hungry and his mom was always too messed up to do anything. One day, I go to work at the shack. It was a regular day. I get into the house, get my products ready, weigh out the stuff and bag them up. Knock on the bedroom door of the guy, owner. I see him sleeping. His girlfriend is also on the couch sleeping, because she is always high and messed up. The kid is just sitting there watching TV. I make him some macaroni and cheese. Now I gotta wake up the guy, because I need an update on what products he's moved the day before. So I go in his room. I see his eyes were still open. White foam all over him like has overdosed. It's normal for me to see overdoses, but this was beyond an overdose. He's been overdosed for too long, which means he's dead. He was probably overdosed for at least 10 hours, because I could smell it, and he was cold to the touch. His vomit was dried, and his eyes were dried. Now I'm in one of the biggest panics I've ever been in. As I'm trying to figure out what to do, I sit down with the kid and stay there until he finishes his mac and cheese, thinking about what I'm going to do next. His mom, sleeping behind me on the couch, is still alive, but has no idea what had happened. Or maybe she does, I don't know. I left the shack, drove about 2 blocks away, used the prepaid cell phone I have to call the police and report it, sat in my car until the police showed up. From that day on, I'm anti-hard drugs. I still wonder about the little kid. He's probably 16 now without a mom. Every time I see the mac and cheese at the supermarket, I get this fucked up feeling in my gut. And for the guy that died, I know I didn't kill him. I've accepted that, but could he have lived longer if I was never in his life? His life story was pretty amazing. He did cool things when he was young. He got into drugs when his mom passed away. He didn't have a dad though. One tip for anyone reading this: never judge a person on where they are in life, even if they are crackheads, as many people would say. Some people go through the most brutal situations and have no love and support to get on their feet. I'm glad I was able to be the man's friend before he died, and I know I treated the kid as a big brother/father, and I hope he remembers that part. Good for you on turning your life around. I'm hoping that my daughter will finally learn her lesson. Been busted 2 times for selling drugs and currently serving 5 years in prison. What I'll never understand is why she felt the need to be a dealer. Roof over her head, free college education, and 5 months before her arrest bought her a new car as an early graduation present. I've been left devastated, in therapy and on antidepressants. I wish you all the best and happy you're no longer leading that lifestyle. Twice. Left anonymous tips, which I know are hard to follow up for such a strange child protection agency, but as a pot dealer it was all I felt I could do. I found out later one of the kids was put into foster care, adopted by the foster parents, and recently graduated a trade school. I have no idea about the other kids, siblings, but I hope they made it too. Kids should be protected. Humans only get one childhood. Let's let kids enjoy it and grow to happy adults. Don't hurt them intentionally or by your own stupidity. THAT also means washing your hands, people. Edit 1. Thanks for all the kind words, guys. A guy in the comments pointed out something that everyone should know. When/if you need to report to CPS, you flood them with details. Lots of details. It's the only way they can act. A 1-sentence tip won't cut it. Just a sap. If you're going to leave an anonymous tip, we can find people by address and phone numbers most of the time, but we need some details to match up the correct house and family. A lot of times multiple families are living in one house together, so not all the people are there at once. We can't go out on drug use alone. You have to give details about how it's affecting the kids. Dirty home, no food, eating cigarettes, pimping out 4-year-old for money, that kind of shit. Most of the time states have very specific guidelines on what child protection is allowed to assign a social worker for. Details are our best friend. Real short and simple. Yes, a friend of my girlfriend introduced us to her neighbors who were like 50 to 60-year-old hippies that looked like a bad acid trip but bought weed regularly for full price. Couple months down the road they start being more friendly with my girlfriend and I, and start talking more when we'd go drop off the shit. The topic began with her telling us how she has custody of her daughter's oldest born because her daughter was sitting time at a women's prison. Backstory on the kid: looks 15 but clearly has the mind capacity of a 6 or 7-year-old. Not sure what was wrong with her specifically, but you could tell there were issues. Near the end of the conversation about her daughter, she brought up the fact that her granddaughter was prescribed Adderall 30XR, and whenever they got her prescription they'd dump all the little beads into a bowl to use whenever they couldn't find meth or whatever they needed, and instead fill the Adderall with Benadryl to make the kid sleep. Till this day I'll never forget the emotions I felt after getting out of there and sitting in my car. My hands were shaking so bad it was hard to Google information about CPS, much less type information. I felt goosebumps in every pore of my scalp. As a father of 2, I never knew such evil existed. Obviously in movies and shit, but never experienced something firsthand like that. One of my friends used children's medicine to make her daughter sleep whenever she didn't want to deal with her. When the grandma took the baby, and there was a few months where she cried a lot. She was going through withdrawals because her mother had been giving her this pain medication for so long. I probably shouldn't mention this on my main, but when I was a younger guy I sold drugs in Toronto. I was once hanging out of my distributor's house. Ghost was a scary motherfucker, and I was a skinny white oil brat messing about in a world I had no part in, but he sort of became my friend and we'd hang out and smoke and talk all the time. In between shakes I would help him on. Anyways, one day this crackhead shows up at the garage begging Ghost to sell her some gear, coke, to cook, and wearing a bunch of suspiciously baggy shit. Now this is a man I've seen hold a gun to a guy's neck at point blank range. I've also been with him when he repoed some shit-baked college kid's giant ass TV off his wall. while he and his roommates were made to sit on the floor like children and get lectured on how lucky they were that they weren't just getting jumped. Guy just owed him like $100 for weed, but then he went and bought this TV. Ghost wasn't someone I would have considered a good guy by any stretch of the term, but I was chopping for him and I appreciated having a boss / buddy that was a hardest in that world, because like I said, I didn't belong, so I needed someone like him. So anyways, Ghost opens the garage and instantly tells her she shouldn't be there and how he knows she's pregnant. It was his cousin's baby and won't be selling her anything but weed anymore. She flipped out / begged, saying she was gonna get an abortion, so it didn't matter. He just shook his head and pretty much said it wouldn't be happening, and what's more, she wouldn't be buying off anyone she knew anymore, as he was gonna chat with them all. He was well connected and, like I said, kind of scary / crazy. She pretty much told him to fuck off and then walked off down the street cussing him out. Ghost shakes his head, gets up, pulls out his phone and starts making phone calls for like an hour, explaining how if he catches anyone selling to his cousin's baby mama anything other than weed, he'd put them in the ground for making his baby cousin a crack baby. Literally everyone agreed not to sell to her and he hung up. Then he told me to get in the car as we'd have to go visit these people now. Great. He said that them saying they wouldn't mean shit unless he at least showed up at a few of their places. To make his seriousness about this more clear, I expected him to be a crazy aggressive dick to them, but he actually offered them all deals next time they got off him. He distributed to everyone in the area at some time or another and got everyone smoking J's, talking all consciously about how crack is what creates the cycle for hood kids, and that just because someone has to sell the stuff doesn't mean you can't think about who you sell to. Anyways, obviously this chick still tried, but she ended up having to get an hour bus ride across the city to find someone who could sell to her. So Ghost finds out a couple days later when someone told him at the garage while we were all hanging out, and then right then and there this motherfucker starts taking screenshots of his own messages with her from a while back when she's buying shit off him, crafts an email on his phone and send the evidence on himself to sis with a report about her buying drugs and how he knows because she's bought off him and tried to do so again since she got pregnant. He said they don't press charges or pursue like cops, but damn, I wouldn't have been that confident. Guy threw himself under the bus to make sure her report was properly followed. Anyways, I've been gone for years and years now, but I still have Ghost on FB, and he's not only not a dealer no more, he started a record company and legal weed business, but he's constantly posting pictures hanging out with his baby cousin in the studio, and the mom's even in some of the photos, and I can't guarantee, but she looks not only clean, but downright healthy and well dressed too, so she clearly turned things around. Dan now has this deep friendship with Ghost, as well as the baby has a father figure. Ghost's cousin dipped. I also know Ghost quit selling shortly after that report and transitioned to legitimate business as he got eated out and thought he was the focus of an investigation due to unmarked cars outside his house a bunch of times after this, which I suspect is from the report, and that sis did in fact hand the evidence onto the police. It was the single most unexpectedly commendable act I've ever witnessed. TL. Doctor, drug dealer / distributor threw himself under a bus and dedicated himself to stopping a pregnant chick from buying crack off people.